Well, that he at some point he may join them. It's worth noting the last debate, at least, he fell back a bit. If you look at it, most of the people who were on the debate went forward. Donald Trump's support went back a bit. I can see why he's avoiding the debates, because if he lost the debate, that could hurt him more. But not turning up the debates does have some cost. And in many ways, what the debates are ending up being is a competition as to who's going to be the alternative to Trump. And that's perhaps the most important thing about them is, will someone break out or do better tonight and end up being in a stronger contention for the nomination?
Was the first debate. We spent a lot of time talking about the impact Vivek Ramaswamy had on the stage. Very charismatic, I would say, and did catch a lot of attention post the debate. But it hasn't translated into polling numbers. His latest polling numbers are only putting him at around 2 to 3%. Why is that the case?
I think he did gain a bit from it. If one looks at it, the number of people considering him went forward. Some of the polls, it depends what poll you look at, he does go up. He's had a standard problem with his polling numbers, which is interesting, which is online polls and polls with a panel, he goes up, but random polls, he doesn't. One argument his supporters are making is because his name's quite difficult for most Americans. People who are only mild supporters might not be saying it to polls yet. But I would say it did help him last time. He did end up dominating the debate, maybe helped Ron DeSantis, and everyone was going after Vivek rather than him. But I wouldn't say the debates don't matter. I think there's a tendency either to say that they matter for everything, which one got a lot in 2016, which isn't true, or they don't matter at all. Actually, they give opportunities for people at the back to break forward, and people who are doing relatively well to get into trouble.
Well, Tom, speaking about the impact of the last debate, Ron DeSantis had a much more muted performance than many had hoped. And it seems like he really chose to stay out of the spotlight. But he got a lot of flack for it in the wake of that debate. Do you expect anything different from him, any more risk-taking tonight?
I think it's hard to predict. I think as a general rule of thumb, Ron DeSantis is someone who sticks to his plans. It's obviously, he's a very successful politician, so they won't necessarily change that. One thing I think did happen last time is there's this weird situation where his PAC is separate from him due to the American finance laws, and they gave him all kinds of suggestions, which you know about because they had to put them online. On how to campaign. He carefully didn't do that, presumably because he thought everyone would be ready for him to do that. So maybe he'll pursue a more aggressive stance this time when there hasn't been a story he's going to do X, Y, and Z a few days before. But we'll see tonight.
Well, looking at the polls that we've got the latest NBC News poll in front of us, conducted just a week or so ago. Donald Trump out in front with nearly 60% of support among Republican voters. As we already noted, he will be skipping the official debate later today. What could derail Trump at this stage?
Well, I mean, there's always the possibility he goes to prison and does some kind of plea bargain. But I actually think if one looks in the early states, he isn't nearly so strong. He's mostly well below 50 there. And so I could easily see a scenario where Ron DeSantis or possibly someone else beat him in Iowa, beat him possibly in New Hampshire. And then there was actually a very open race, which Donald Trump could very well lose, having had a huge early lead, a bit like Hillary Clinton in 2016. So I think that's I think that's one thing to remember. We're still quite a few months away. People like us who follow it very closely are following it. But actually, even the kind of people who vote in Republican primaries, who are quite political people, just aren't following that closely. So I could easily see Donald Trump having a consistent, very large lead and then actually struggling a bit once people start voting.